Welcome to Discovering. It's a great time for a UP road trip.
We'll be doing some camping, a little bit of stream fishing and some rainbow fishing, hiking, a trip to the Sioux for some walleye fishing, a couple of days on Mackinac Island, and a whole lot more in between. The trip starts tonight, so
put your feet up, the remote down, and come on along. It's Monday night and time for Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone, forest thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak, surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields, call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
bird season is in the air, and summer is nearing its end. But I wasn't ready to let go yet. There's certainly more than enough season left for one last summertime road trip. So I hooked up the bedrock, threw in a couple of fishing rods, some light tackle, extra clothes, food and drinks, a pile of camera gear, strapped on the kayak, and hit the road. I was on my way for a week of something. That's kind of the nice thing about trips like this. You never know where you'll actually end up, what you'll end up doing, or who you'll end up meeting. I didn't necessarily have a complete plan laid out, but I did have a plan on where I was going. The plan was to head east to the Newberry area, to one of my favorite spots on the map, the Pretty Lakes Quiet area. After a couple of days there, I would head towards Sault Ste. Marie, where I would meet up with my wife Patty and some friends. After a couple nights, Patty and I would head south and camp for a day somewhere along the shores of Lake Huron. After that, a couple of days on Mackinac Island. So after 175 miles of US 2, 77, 28, 123, 407, 416, a whole bunch of gas, and a stop for crawlers and worms who would later escape in the food cooler, I arrived at my destination. The Pretty Lakes Campground would be my base camp for the next couple of days. The Two-Hearted River is in the Pretty Lakes neighborhood, and there was a spot nearby where I could access the river relatively easily. So I couldn't resist at least taking a look. I really wanted a brook trout for lunch to start my adventure, so I decided to give it a shot. The downside is, when you're both the cameraman and the fisherman, brook trout fishing loses a lot of what makes it so special. You kind of need to do one or the other. The upside, awesome UP scenery and a quiet backwoods section of a great river. In spite of the scenery and my quest for a brook trout lunch, it didn't take long for thoughts of that sizzling brookie to be overshadowed by the aggravation of spending so much time concentrating on filming and so little time enjoying the fishing. After an hour or so, I covered only a very small portion of the river and connected with no more than a fingerling. So I decided it was time to cut my losses and move on to the next endeavor. Pretty Lake's quiet area is a 2,200-acre non-motorized area located in the heart of the Lake Superior State Forest, 27 miles northwest of Newberry in Luce County. The tract includes 9 lakes connected by a system of trails and portages. The portages are easy and short. Most are under a few hundred feet. The lakes are all pretty small and provide fishing for trout, smallmouth bass, or walleye. 6 of the lakes are stocked with trout, including rainbow and brookies. I'm camped at the Pretty Lake State Forest Campground, a rustic facility of 18 sites with a small day-use area and carry-in boat launch. Ah yes, brook trout for lunch. I can smell it in the air. I can taste the deliciousness of freshly caught fish on my tongue. Never mind. If it looks like a hot dog and smells like a hot dog, it's a hot dog. The longer I sat and stared at that plain old hot dog soaking in a pan of water, the less hungry I became. Then again, it doesn't have to be just a plain old dog. It might not be brook trout, but it doesn't have to be boring. So I decided to turn it into, well, lunch. Okay, it was worth a try. It's still a hot dog. So, with lunch behind me, it was time to venture on. I stuffed the kayak in the back of the Jeep and headed for Pratt Lake, about 10 minutes or so away. Pratt Lake is a 24-acre natural lake with no inlet or outlet. It's stocked annually with Eagle Lake strain yearling rainbow trout. I'm not sure how big they get in here, but I was just hoping for a couple of legal-sized fish to replace the possibility of hot dogs for dinner. I started out with a spinner, and then a small spoon, some casting, some trolling. I eventually traded in the spinner for a night crawler. After checking out a few different enticing spots, I drifted from what I expected was the deeper part of the lake toward the shoreline. Sure enough, dinner was waiting. Dinner. The routine became paddling out about 40 to 50 yards from shore and drifting in. The fish were about 20 to 25 yards from shore. That one was just legal and would go in the cooler for tomorrow's lunch. This guy was a little too small, and I had all I needed to replace any possibility of hot dogs or the such like for my upcoming meals. He was a bit tuckered out, but eventually headed for the bottom. It was a spectacular afternoon on the water, but it was time to head back to the campsite. It's hard to leave a spot like this, but the evening menu included trout for dinner, a lawn chair, a campfire, and a cold beer. Not such a bad trade. I can tell you in advance, this was probably the best tasting trout I've ever eaten. Fish was certainly fresh, but I've eaten a lot of fresh fish before. Is it the seasoning? Doubt it. Just salt and pepper. The breading? Wouldn't think so. Not exactly sure what was in the bag, but guessing just crackers and flour. The peppers? The onions? I guess each ingredient plays its part. But it's something more. It's always something more. I doubt the fire imparted any direct flavor whatsoever into this fish, but yet it seems to be an integral part. That pan that's had 1,000 meals cooked in it, all of them outdoors, but is just a pan. Cooking some freshly caught fish over a fire next to a pristine backwoods UP lake on a perfect sunny day, the birds, the breeze, wood smoke, it's bound to taste fantastic. You could fry up a rock bass on a stick right now and it would probably taste great. So, was this the best tasting trout I've ever eaten? Who knows? All I know is that right now, today, it is. One of the best parts of camping, for sure, is relaxing by the fire at the end of the day. And this is certainly not a bad place at all to do it. Quiet indeed. Night turns to day, and I woke up to a great morning. I also woke up hungry. I hate to overload you with food, but breakfast is one of those camping things I just can't do without. So I wouldn't feel right if I didn't at least give you a taste. The weather prediction dictated that there was a pretty good chance it was going to rain at some point. So instead of kayaking and portaging my way around the area, I opted to check out some of the hiking opportunities. There are a variety of hiking trails that will take you from one lake to another. Eek Lake features different fishing opportunities. You'll also find some great backcountry campsites. Many go above and beyond a typical backcountry site with picnic tables, fire pits, water, even bathrooms. If you're traveling by canoe or kayak, you can portage from lake to lake. The portages are short and well marked. My plan was to hike a little over a mile into Beaver House Lake, where I'd whip up a quick lunch, relax a bit, and then head back out. The trails pass through mainly pine forest and take you near each of the lakes, making for some great scenery. The trails are wide, clean, and easy to walk. Beaver House Lake, complete with water, outhouse, picnic tables, fire pits, and campsites. I could feel the weather making a move in an unfriendly direction, so lunch was going to need to be quick. You didn't think I was going to settle for a sandwich, did you? As I finished up my mini fish fry lunch, the rain started, so I packed up, threw on some rain gear, and headed out. Well, Pretty Lakes didn't disappoint. The camping, fishing, kayaking, hiking, and of course the food. Altogether made for a great couple of days. From here it's off to Sault Ste. Marie, where I'll meet up with Patty and some friends and see if we can connect up with some walleyes. I do believe there's a fish fry and a jam session in the works as well. There are a couple of ATV rides coming up on the weekend of September 11th. The Forsyth ATV and Snowmobile Club is hosting the third annual Girls Only Ride, period. Sponsored by Mucked Up and MGD Custom Builders, the ride is to benefit local ladies in need. Find out more on Facebook. And don't miss the 8th annual Faithorn Fun Run. The ride starts at the Long Branch Saloon in Faithorn at 11 a.m. Central. There will be a trophy for the muddiest bike and the muddiest person. To raise funds, there will be a lunch, t-shirts, a 50-50 drawing, and a raffle. All proceeds and donations will be put toward a welding scholarship at DIISD Technical Center in memory of DJ Bryant. You can find more information on Facebook. That's it for tonight. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week right here on Discovering.